Welcome to the KBB Review podcast. I'm Andy Davies, and this is episode 3 of season 15. It's a beautiful warm June day, isn't it? And what better way to celebrate than shutting myself up here in the loft to record this? As a result, I'm sweating like I'm on a Texas chain gang. But it's all worth it, as we've got a great interview for you today. Phil Cole, the co-owner of Clive Christian. It was founded in 1978 by Clive, and it has become one of the few well-known kitchen brands in the ultra-luxury arena, certainly in the traditional design style. It's had its ups and downs, though, as we will hear, going into administration in April 2022, and that's where the then global sales director, Phil Cole, bought the company with Jim Denos, the owner of the US operations. So we'll hear all about that, as well as how the luxury market is performing, what people expect for the kind of cost they deal in, how discretion is a valuable skill, finding skilled artisans and craftsmen, how to keep a company growing, and lots more. It is really interesting stuff. I met up with Phil at their flagship London showroom, which is actually a beautiful townhouse in Kensington, and we sat at a desk in a proper wood-panelled office. I've never felt so fake rich. But first, we're only a week away from the Installer Show at the NEC, where every day at 1:30 on the Kitchen of the Future stand, we'll be recording a live episode of this very podcast. On Tuesday, the 24th, we'll have a panel of top retailers discussing the health of the market. On Wednesday, the 25th, we've got some great accessible design experts giving us some proper top tips. And on Thursday, the 26th, we're looking at how small to medium-sized KBB showrooms can use social media to grow their business. So that's 1:30 on the Kitchen of the Future stand. Come along, listen in, join in, or just come and say hello to me. I'll talk to anyone. Go to installershow.com to register your free ticket, and that link is in the episode description. And here we are with Phil Cole in the Clive Christian showroom. Hello, Phil. Thank you for letting me into this. I mean, it's an amazing house. It's absolutely beautiful here. It's not quite finished. We're still working on it.
Yeah, 1 Sydney Place. It's our flagship for Clive Christian interiors. It's our biggest showroom worldwide. So it's about 6,000 square foot over 5 floors. So it's the biggest showroom that we've sort of ever invested into. But it's the one that gave us the opportunity to really put a stamp on the brand. It's the first showroom that we invested in since taking the business over. So for us, it was really important to put that stake in the ground and say, who do we want to be? How do we want people to see us? And how do we want to operate as a business moving forward? So this was the perfect setting to start that off.
And we are sat in basically a wood-panelled office. And I feel like I should be either firing you or reading you someone's will.
Yes, it does feel a bit formal, doesn't it?
But I imagine your customers absolutely love it.
Yes, particularly customers of old. We get a lot of repeat business at Clive Christian Interiors, and we've had people doing business with us for 25, 30 years. And so when people get to see this, it's a bit nostalgic a little bit. This room particularly is very much a stamp on the original statement of the brand. You know, in other rooms of the showroom which you would have seen, there's a little bit more modern sort of transitional themes to it. And we've tried to bring the brand forward a little bit to the 21st century, but the office we're sat in here is statement of old. It is Clive Christian sort of through and through. So a little bit more formal, but gives a great emphasis into the quality or what you could perhaps expect from a Clive Christian room.
Let's wind the clock back a bit and bring the story up to how we got to here. So obviously Clive Christian, everyone knows the name. He started the company in the late 70s and, very successful. Fantastic brand. Everyone's very familiar with the style of Clive Christian. And then we hit 2019. There's a management buyout. So where in there do you sort of enter stage left in the story? You own it now, but you worked for it before that point. Yeah. So what point do you enter?
Just at the beginning of 2020.
Right.
Despite there being lots of connecting themes between my previous life within the KBV industry and where I am now, I actually saw a job advertisement for global sales director for Clive Christian. And it transpired that the person that had purchased the business was David Dare, previous owner of Shores of Darwin. Very close to me personally in terms of a business point of view. But actually, since David had left Shores, our paths hadn't really crossed, kind of went in our different directions. But I saw an advertisement for a global sales director. And I was at the point of my life where I kind of was looking for a bit of a change. I'd been at Perrin & Rowe for 12, 13 years and seen a lot of change, etc. So I was looking for a little bit of a lease of life to move forward. So I advertised for global sales director, and met with David, and because there was that sort of commonality, the history between us, I think it made the process feel like it was the right step to make. Although it was a big step and it was out of my comfort zone because I'd been in the same place for like 13 years. You know, it's not necessarily something I'd envisioned, but was wanting for something more. So met with David, and basically COVID happened and kind of almost put the brakes on that situation moving forward. But actually David had taken the decision that no, the time is now that we need to move forward. So I joined in the middle of 2020 as global sales director.
But then more or less virtually 3 years ago, 2022, April 22, the company went into administration. Yeah. Was that COVID related, or was that?
No, it wasn't actually. And it's the oddest process I've kind of ever been involved in. The company was actually trading profitably. Not to go way back, but the company, when David bought Clive Christian, was probably not in the best shape. It changed hands a few times in the prior years. It had gone in multiple directions, and it really needed someone, to be fair, like David, to put it in a straight direction and get it moving forward as a business first and foremost. And actually we were doing really well, and COVID was exceptionally tough, but actually we were trading in the right direction. Now, I won't go into the finer details of why it all transpired, but there was a situation where David needed or wanted to take a step back from his investment or step back from the business. Yeah. And without the funding of the owner of that business, ultimately that business couldn't continue to trade without that investment. And that's what ultimately led to the administration. Of course, there were strains from COVID and various things that also helped it in that direction. But ultimately, it needed a new person to come into the business. And because of the quickness that it needed to happen and the inability to continue without an investor of the business, that's ultimately what meant administration needed to happen. And I remember being in the board meeting with the administrators to say, this is going to go into administration, and do we know of any parties that would be interested? And I don't know why, but my hand went up, and I genuinely don't understand to this day why my hand went up, because I didn't really have the funds or the or the resource to do that. But I kind of knew that the business was too good not to exist, and to not have the control effectively to make sure that it went in the direction that I kind of felt that business wanted to go in. And we employ 60 people that rely on paychecks like us all. And I had a great sort of affinity to make sure that continued. So we went from point of administration to us purchasing the business. We completed it in 3 weeks, which was the scariest time of my life.
So it's you and your partner, who was basically a Clive Christian retailer over in the States.
Correct. He owns all the showrooms in the US. Yeah. And I contacted Jim to notify him of the situation, and we got to talking, and we both felt that it was the right move to move forward. He had just heavily invested in the operations in the US, just took on a new building for what is now our LA showroom, just took on a new building for what is now our New York showroom. So there was a lot of investment from his side, but he'd been part of the business for like 25 years. So it was a deep-rooted connection with the brand.
Which is important for you, is because you were still relatively new at the company.
Yeah, 2 years basically, yeah.
So you needed that kind of pedigree, that kind of longevity to come in and sort of underpin your keenness to take it over and run the thing.
Yeah, I kind of felt that, without tooting my own horn, I guess, I felt I had the ability to lead the business. And Jim, I knew, could run the business or the operation side of it in America for the showrooms that he had. So we really just needed to make sure that we were both on the same page, I guess. And 3 weeks, a funny caveat to that is that because of COVID and because of me only being in the business for a very short period of time before that, is I hadn't actually met Jim physically. We'd spoken on the phone, we'd done a lot of Zoom calls, as everyone did during COVID, but I hadn't actually physically met Jim when we actually purchased the business. It was only a week after we had bought the business that I actually flew out to Chicago and met with him, which I wouldn't advise for anyone to do if they're going to go into that. But it worked for us, and we're a great yin and yang in terms of partnership. So I had that deep feeling that we were going to be okay. And the key for me was really to make sure that this business kind of carried on and carried on in the direction that we kind of all were working towards. Because we all, even previous owners or previous management team, we all had that same linear thinking of where we kind of needed to go. So
Okay, so how many showrooms are there now?
there's 11 worldwide.
Right, so I'm going to say 3 or 4 in the UK.
5. We are in Surrey, in Weybridge. We are here in London. We have 1 in Nantwich in Cheshire, and then we have 2 in Scotland. Glasgow has been open and operational now for many years, and they actually originally were in Edinburgh and moved to Glasgow, but we kind of quickly found that there's almost like 2 populations in Scotland. So Edinburgh was like a natural progression for that franchise of the business.
And then obviously lots of international ones. You got American ones, obviously, but then there's also...
The international is a little bit of an area that we need to kind of work on, which we are actively working on. But America is a big part of our business. It's probably about 50% of our business. So we have New Jersey, New York, Chicago, and LA. The other 2 showrooms that we have, there's 1 in Sweden and there's 1 in Vietnam. So probably 2 of the locations you wouldn't necessarily pick out of a hat to say this is where we're going to fly the flag. But there's a lot of history with those 2 showrooms and areas of actual, I think, future longevity for us. But then that's where we're at now, where we're filling those puzzle pieces of where else Clive Christian.
I mean, I guess, why wouldn't you have 1 in Dubai or somewhere?
We might be looking,
or whatever that.
Yeah. Dubai Middle East is definitely our next venture. I would say, to sort of breaking news for Clive Christian, is Dubai is definitely our next entrance into a market. We already do a lot in the Middle East, and London is so important to us as a showroom, because it's that epicenter of design.
I was going to say, about you sell a lot of kitchens to Dubai from here.
Correct, yeah. So we've done Bahrain, we're working in Saudi at the moment. We've done a couple of projects in Dubai. So that Middle Eastern market is quickly becoming too important for us to miss. So yeah, it's an exciting chapter that I think will be one that unveils pretty quickly.
So where is everything made?
Here in England. As a business, our core business, or our main structure or asset of the business, is our factory. So it's in Bolton. It has been there for many, many years. It's a 35,000 square foot facility. So we employ, I would say 90% of our 60 employees are all based there. So everything is manufactured in that factory, whether it goes to the West Coast of America or the Far East, all manufactured here in the UK, and then is shipped out to the individual projects.
And they must be proper artisan craftsmen in doing that. I mean, some of the marquetry and stuff that you do here, that's quite rare skill to have these days.
Yeah, it's increasingly hard to keep hold of. It's something that's like really at the forefront of my heart. We employ a decent sized amount of people, and it's becoming harder and harder to replicate for various reasons, in terms of available resource out in the market, of people wanting to enter into that career. Our ability to train people and grow at the same time is increasingly difficult, but it's a necessity. So we have apprenticeship schemes. So all of this beautiful marquetry that you've seen within this showroom in London, there is a very young team of people in our veneer shop within the factory. One of them started when she was 16 as an apprentice. I believe she's now 21. And she did the bar and all of the marquetry pretty much that we can see here in the showroom. So we are desperately trying to inject a little bit of youth into the market, but it is so difficult because technology as well is one that you don't want to ignore, because it's such a prevalent part of the world now. It's the world we live, but everything we do is handmade as well. So we're trying to strike that balance of how you create something with that artisanal craftsmanship, but also as a business make it make sense to do it as quickly as possible or in the time that needs to be done. So we're always playing that juggling act of how much in technology and how much pure hand manufacturing do you incorporate into the structures. And it's one I think we're getting right.
We touched on this a bit already, but you took over about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
How's it been?
I had hair before it wasn't a path that I thought I always envisaged owning a business moving forward at some point in my life. But at that point in April 22, I had no idea that 3 weeks later I would be owning a business. So I've had to learn really quickly. I've had to take on as much advice as I possibly can from people and learn to listen and shut up. And, whether I agree with the advice or not, but if I can just take a percent here, a percent there from people, yeah, it's been like a real learning curve. And when I joined the business, I had all these visions or targets of this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to achieve in 12 months, 24, 3 years, 5 years. And I kind of 5 years later feel like I'm only just beginning on that journey again. So we're forever trying to, right, what are we doing for the short term, medium, long term? And that always seems to keep changing. So I kind of really feel like I'm only just getting going, but it's been stressful. It's been eye-opening, but it's been like super enjoyable. Like going to that factory, I try to go to the factory every month, touch base with everyone, work on some internal parts of the business. And I just love going around that factory every month, seeing the product that comes through. Nothing's ever the same, which stresses my finance director and other people out in the business. But seeing all these new things coming through the business, it's mad to think that that's ours and that we get to push that brand and that business forward. So
what I find fascinating about it is to call you a retailer is almost barely scratching the surface of what it is you actually do. Because yeah, you can make stuff and you make stuff very well. And you can brand stuff and have branding and that's fine, marketing and all that kind of thing. But when you're dealing with the kind of premium level customer that you're dealing with, it's a whole different skill set of managing what the expectations of those people are.
Yeah.
And when I say expectations, I don't just mean the quality of the furniture or whatever. It's the expectations of how they expect you to talk to them and what the kind of brand of coffee you're going to offer them. And how, they have the kind of money where everywhere they go, they are experiencing very luxurious and luxury stuff. And so how hard is it to kind of tune into what that actually means away from just making a nice kitchen?
Yeah, it's something that we're forever learning, I think. Cultures, expectations are always changing. So it's something we're forever trying to reinvent the wheel on, I guess. But for me, it all comes down to the senses. And that's what I think luxury is. It's all about the touch. It's all about the sight. It's all about the smell. All of that encompasses that luxury experience. So it isn't just about creating a really nice desk or a really nice kitchen. We have to cater to all of those senses. And then the experience that they have as well. The people don't want to just come in to a showroom and be shown a factory line of displays or different styles, different colors, different timbers. All of that's important, but it's about the experience they have with us. And that's what we're trying to accomplish here with our showrooms, is that lived in feel. People come into this showroom and our other showrooms and they don't just feel like it's a retail shop. It's about the experience of everything that they see and the ability for them to feel like they could utilize this or have this in their home. So experience is the biggest thing for us. And that boils into, we don't have people just come here to look at joinery. We have people to come in here and have a wine tasting event. We have cooking demonstrations. We had a barbecue last summer. When the cinema room in our basement is finished, we'll be doing movie nights. We've done perfume tasting for the Clive Christian perfume side of the business. So there's all these different experiences we're trying to offer the company because it's a way of life. It's not a kitchen. It's a brand. It's their way of life, how they can embody that within their lives themselves.
Is there such a thing as an average order value?
It varies so much. I'll try and...
Very roughly speaking, just as a context,
I would say a kitchen normally starts at £100,000 upwards.
Right. So the overall package, I'm sure, is probably twice that once they've started doing everything else that goes around it. So this is the bit I always wonder, because obviously I haven't got any money, I'm a journalist. But when they're talking that kind of money, are they more detailed with what it costs, or do they just go, whatever, Phil, just send me the bill?
It really varies. The one thing I've been shocked by since I joined the business is I didn't envisage how many consumers were going to be involved in the process. We would expect interior designers, architects, contractors. We would expect maybe their family office or someone external to be involved in managing that process. And we've had all walks of life, all levels of wealth. And it still amazes me and actually makes me incredibly happy. But we get end users involved in the color of the leather or what appliances they want or what worktops they want and what color it needs to be, etc. So that's been really refreshing, because actually we love working with interior designers, we love working with the contractors, etc. But to know that you, at this level, when you're making something bespoke or custom, to know that it means something to the end user, whether it be the color of the leather or maybe a personalized touch that's important to that consumer that maybe would have been missed somewhere along the process, is what's really great for us. And that's something that's really shocked me and surprised me. But in terms of the financial side of things, it varies so drastically, and we get all sorts of feedback from that. But what we always try and do is show the value. So it's not about this is the invoice, it's about what are we doing for you for that value, for that price.
The overall experience rather than just the product, isn't it? I 100% get that. Do people with money just want expensive things? Or I'm wondering how much you have to justify the cost of why that furniture is expensive and why it is much more expensive than the place down the road. Because most retailers will have to do some kind of comparison, There's other luxury premium kitchen people in this area. So how much do they drill down into why it's expensive?
It goes the other way. We don't leave it up to chance for them to ask that question. We try and showcase it all the time. We go to that detail of why this product is better or different, or why that value is what it is. And we try and be as transparent and open as possible about it, because it is a lot of money, regardless of how wealthy that client is. I think everyone cares to a certain extent of how much they spend on a certain item or a certain expense. So we try and not leave that up to question. We try and deliver that through our package. So we try and show them the timbers and why we're using that timber, why we're designing it in this way, how it affects their life or how they use that product on a day-to-day life, the handmade element, the bespoke personalization nature of it. We're asking them simple but silly questions sometimes of, well, where are you going to be doing this? And what do you need in and around that to make it work for you? Everything we're doing is trying to value proposition what we're offering. We're trying to go into those details for them, so they don't need to ask the question. They already know and they understand why it is what it is.
There's no secret that the market's quite tricky at the moment. It's just the overall economy and everything else is affecting everything. So how is the market at the kind of end that you operate at? Is it people have money will always have money, or do you see an effect from the wider economy of things?
Good question. It's buoyant for us, I would say. There's always room for more, and we always want to grow and drive the business forward. I would say it's buoyant at the luxury end of the sector. I would say that people are, going back to that previous question, I would say that people are perhaps more insightful into what they are doing and why they are spending it.
Right.
So again, it does make our job a little bit more difficult, and we do have to go to that extra level to showcase what the value proposition is for our product and the brand. But I'd say it's busy. I think what keeps us on our toes is I think some of the middle market brands are elevating upwards and driving forward, which is great to see. Because the more, I hate to use the word competition, but the more brands we have on this level, the better for us, because there aren't many. So it's nice to see that people are driving forward and pushing forward, because it actually continuously makes us rethink about what we're doing and how we can improve. But I do think the middle sector is probably quite tough at the moment by the looks of it. But I don't take for granted that we're in the luxury sector either, because that can just as quickly be taken away from us, depending on what is going on in the world. So we are always thinking about how we project ourselves as a business in that luxury sector. But I think the market is good, and it seems to be coming back. Last year was hesitant, I think is probably the word I would say. Is people are a lot more hesitant. There was potentially more projects on hold, waiting to see what was going to happen. For example, the presidential election in America last year, of which I don't know if we want to get into or not, but whether people agreed or didn't agree with the outcome, it felt to me like almost the day after we started receiving phone calls and inquiries, wasn't to be that they were waiting to see who got in. They were waiting for a conclusion so they could actually just get on with their lives now. So we did see almost like a flip of a switch in America, that there was more inquiries almost immediately after. So I would say last year was a little bit more hesitant. This year it seems to be growing. It seems to be building up speed. And we're optimistic, I would say, is about this year, and optimistic that there's a path that goes higher and higher moving forward.
Well, let's talk a little bit about development, because one of the things you've got downstairs is effectively a contemporary Clive Christian range. And you know, if I say those Clive Christian, people will immediately picture the style that it's well known for, but there it is, a contemporary Clive Christian kitchen. While that's an obvious expansion for you to do, to have a dual offering there for people who might want a bit of both, you are going into an area that is much more competitive. So what's the kind of strategy behind that? What are your goals and plans for that?
So it's been in the works for a while. When I first joined the business in 2020, it was very much a topic of conversation within the business, because we were aware that the brand had a personal view from the outside world, but it was maybe a more traditional brand, a traditional product. So we did feel the need that it needs to be refreshed, but we were really hesitant about what that would be, because it needed to be organic in terms of not just getting on the contemporary train that's already moving and just being a part of the competition that's already out there. But we did understand that there needed to be a fresher take on Clive Christian as a brand. So we knew that we needed to do it, and we spent 2 or 3 years in development to get to that point, really, because it had to be right. It had to be contemporary or modern, but it had to still have the Clive Christian essence about it, which was really, really difficult. And full credit to our head of design at the time, who's now our head of operations, Ollie, because I think he really nailed it. I think he really got it right, because we went in with the question of how do we create a contemporary product, and flipped it to how do we attract a contemporary audience. And it was a complete reverse way of looking at something, because going at it the way of how do we create a contemporary product would always lead you in that same direction of what's already out there in the market. Whereas we looked at it from, what do contemporary customers like? What are the brands that they like? What is their world like? How do they live their life? So we looked at it from a different angle that I think allowed us to not be chained to the shackles of what's already out there in the market. But the one thing we knew that we needed to keep, because it was the essence of the brand, was materiality. We needed to have super high-end quality materials that gave that brand essence, but gave a value proposition that was in keeping with Clive Christian, that was luxurious, had a traditional sort of feel to it, but from a modern viewpoint. And the Opus collection that we've created, I think, is the exact way of doing it. And the marquetry opportunity that we have in it, the door styles, the special features and finishes that you can have, just takes it to the next level, really.
Yeah, I mean, the craftsmanship is still there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But you can see that we're just opening the drawers. But it is a contemporary kitchen, and it's going to be interesting to see how that works out for you, because you are suddenly going up against people, if you know what I mean.
Correct.
In a way that you probably aren't as much in the traditional Clive Christian design. So it's going to be really interesting. So what's also come into my head as we've walked around here today is, obviously you partner up with lots of other luxury brands, but the Clive Christian brand is basically furniture and perfume, and sort of nothing in between. I'm wondering whether you thought of how else you can use that brand, because you've got, I don't know, beds and bedding and lighting and, you know, and all these kind of things that are very much complementary. And obviously it helps your story to have other luxurious brands in partnership. But there are opportunities there where you think,
Yeah, and we've done that previously, before I came along, but the business previously has had wallpapers, rugs, soft furnishings, cutlery, crockery. The business went in that direction, and that's where maybe the perfume felt like a little bit more of an organic fit then. Now, those our businesses, the interiors and the perfumes, are two separate businesses and entities completely. We share the same brand, and we're very close with that business, and we do a lot of joint partnership activity. For me, when I joined the business, it was about how do we get Clive Christian back doing what it does best, and how do we get us to the forefront of what we do, which is interiors and joinery. So one, we needed to get that one sorted first. For me, if we launch something that's not joinery, it would have to feel real to me. It would have to be a reason for doing it not just a ticker box to say that we're stamping our name on this because it links into everything else we do. We are joiners. We manufacture product manufactured out of timber, and we manufacture it here in the UK. So if we were to suddenly launch a product that's branded under Clive Christian that isn't that, for me, there'd have to be a real organic fit of why that happened, rather than just doing it for the sake of doing it, because we needed to focus on what we do and what we do best. And we're doing that now. We don't manufacture wallpaper, and I don't think we ever will. So for us, particularly in this moment in time, it was about, well, we do get asked for that product. And rather than just putting our name to something, why don't we have a partnership with a brand that is already known in that industry, already does an incredible job, but shares the same synergies as our brand, the same rationale of why they do it in wallpaper and why we do it here in joinery, and work with them. Now, that may lead to future business that the lines become a little bit more blurred. But for us at this time, we needed to do what we do best and really focus and hone in on that and start doing it better as well and do more of it. And then other connections with other product lines, we will get to that, but we'll get to that when it's organically right for us as a business, rather than just having lots of different arms out in the world of different product lines, etc. So yeah, there's so much scope for that, and my cogs are turning when we talk about this, but it would just have to be right, and there'd have to be a real story behind why we did that, because that's where, certainly in the luxury sector, if there's not that foundation there, it falls away really quickly. Because people aren't stupid, and we know that.
And there's always an element of it's out of your control in terms of the quality and manufacturing and all those things.
Yeah, there's definitely part of that. Yeah, we just want to be real in what we do at the end of the day, and we want to do it well. I worry that if we don't do it properly, it would lead to something that we don't want, and that's uncertainty and instability and a brand that becomes inauthentic, which, and that word gets thrown around a lot, but it's something that our brand or our business we can really hold on to with our full heart, because everything we do is down to us and our full control. So yeah, anything in the future, it would have to be right for us, really.
Okay, well, let's conclude this then by talking about the future. You're 3 years in, you've steadied the ship, everything's back where it needs to be. So what about 3 years from now or 5 years from now? What are your plans? What are your goals?
Yeah, so we have steadied the ship, and that's something I've learned we'll always have to do. It's just part of owning that business, and things change, and you have to go in different directions sometimes, etc., to make it work. But we're looking at growing the business in terms of more showrooms. Historically, Clive Christian, I think, had anywhere up to 50 showrooms worldwide. We're very much of the opinion is less is more. So we are looking at tier 1 cities or countries within the world where we feel there's a suitable fit for our product and the right clientele, the right design infrastructure, etc. as well. So as we alluded to earlier, Middle East is definitely a big part of our business moving forward, and it's something that I would like to move forward with very quickly. But again, it has to be right, and that's the things we're kind of working through now. So yeah, me personally, I think there's probably another 5 to 7 showrooms that would make sense to have in the world, in key tier 1 cities. And we're just looking to continue to really do what we do best, because I really genuinely feel like the business previously has maybe lost sight of that a little bit. And that's where this stabilizing the ship is come in. So we really are just focusing on what we do and what we do well, create some new showrooms, create new experiences, create new brand partnerships. And that's where this starts with the London showroom. So the future is exciting. But one thing I have learned is that not to make too many long-term plans, because things change very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So I went January 2022 to making targets, personal targets, things I wanted to achieve. And 3 months later, I ripped up that whole page and started again. So,
and your wife said, "You did what?"
Yeah, she's been really.
You just bought what?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that is the great thing, is I have a really great family and group of friends and people I trust around me that have made that experience a lot easier. So yeah, we're not looking too far into the future, but there's clear holes in what we're looking to achieve. We're going to try and get that done as quickly as possible. We have got something really exciting that's coming later this year. Is we have just moved location in New York, and we'll be launching a 5,000 square foot town apartment in Flatiron in New York.
Wow.
Which will be incredible. I've seen some images of it being created at the moment, and it is London on steroids. It's going to be...
Well, if you need me to come over and have a look at that, just let me know.
We're going to be getting everyone over.
I'll make some time for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who's the most famous person you've had here?
Oh, I couldn't possibly tell you.
You
I can't.
I mean, apart from Clive himself, obviously.
We are very, very fortunate. We work with a lot of clients from all over the world, but I couldn't possibly tell you, even if I wanted to.
Clearly, I could tell you who the clientele in the Treasure one are going to be.
There's a few.
It's mostly professional sports people, I imagine.
There's definitely been a few.
Yeah. Oh, I see. I'm going to say Elton. I bet Elton's got a Clive Christian kitchen.
There's definitely some singers and some entertainment.
I suppose, look, discretion is part of the service, isn't it? I guess it's part of what you're paying for is a level of understanding and trust and discretion.
Yeah, part of what we do is 100% trust. Trust in us and what we're doing. Trust in the client. Yeah, it's a massive part of what we do. So I would love to tell you more, but my lips are sealed on this one.
Well, look, thank you for inviting me here. Thank you for giving me the full tour. It's a beautiful place. And, in my head, I know you don't live here, but in my head, you do.
Yeah.
And this is just a normal day, set at a desk. This is where you work.
Yeah, my house is not as grand as this, I can assure you, yeah.
So thank you so much for this. It's been really, really interesting. And, I'll follow the journey.
I really appreciate it, Andrew. Thanks very much.